Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there tonight and had yourselves a wonderful day. And I hope everyone has been having a great and, more importantly, a safe week out there. We've been tracking Debby since this past weekend, made landfall as a hurricane to the Big Bend of Florida, and then, of course, got off the coast of the southeast, strengthened a little bit, and then made landfall as a tropical storm in the South Carolina coastline last night. Now, it is no longer a tropical storm. Debby is now a tropical depression, but you can certainly continue to see the spin of the depression over the Carolinas, bringing a lot of rain out to Virginia. Tornado threat continues. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give you one last really detailed update on Debby, and then after this video, it's pretty much just going to be discussing the daily forecast. Like for tomorrow, when we talk about Debby, we'll just be talking about the impacts for the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, for example. But as far as a detailed update on Debby, we're pretty much done after this video. But we're certainly going to have a tornado threat overnight tonight across areas in the Mid-Atlantic, into tomorrow for areas in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So we're going to speak heavily on the details one last time. And then for the entire second half of this video, stay tuned. There is going to be another storm we're going to be tracking for a long time, I think. I'm very confident on this. I think this is ultimately going to be our next named storm, which is the E name, Ernesto. So we're going to give you all the latest model guidance on that, talk about the environment background out ahead of this storm. Not going to talk about steering currents. We're just a little bit too early in the game for this. But folks, the Atlantic is about to get very, very active. And I'm not trying to freak anybody out. I'm not trying to overly hype anything, but it's the truth. So we'll discuss that. We'll have timestamps up throughout the entire video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about, we'll pray over. As always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling here. So like I said, you can still see that cyclonic spin over the Carolinas here in my neck of the woods, here in Columbia, South Carolina. I made a joke on social media saying we've had like a Category 5 mist, light rain all day that eventually has added up to over an inch of rain now, but certainly not that bad down here. I'm sure there's a lot of mumbling and grumbling saying why they cancel schools. But, you know, you just got to take the safety precautions there. But we're having some banding. You know, we kind of saw this on the short-range models, and it actually is verifying pretty well. We got some storms down here that's actually had some special weather statements. No severe weather down here in Georgia. Some storms wrapping back through the low country this evening, all the way back in the southeast areas in North Carolina. And then once they get on the northeast quadrant of this actual center of low pressure, which is probably right over Charlotte right now, or getting close, this is where a tornado threat can materialize with some of these banding features on the east and northeast side of the system. We even have an ongoing tornado warning right at this second up here in like central and kind of east central sections, kind of north of Richmond, Virginia. But where you see these box areas, these are flash flood warnings. We have an ongoing flash flood warning in the Charlotte metro area, Mecklenburg County. Look, we just got another tornado warning that just popped up in this area. This has been a hot spot in North Carolina right into here. But, you know, Rock Hill, Charlotte got rocked this morning. Somebody said, you know, like York County, for example, they didn't cancel schools immediately. I think they did it this morning, which, in my opinion, was not a good idea. But anyways, not going to speak much on that. But as you can tell, the rainfall is now getting all the way up to the D.C. area, starting to creep into southern PA. In fact, we have flash flood warnings ongoing in northern Delaware, extreme southeastern PA, and rain starting to get up into New Jersey now. Rain in Delmarva very lightly, and a little bit of storm activity kind of on the outer edge, the western edge of this system. Even rain all the way up here with a nice outflow of moisture surging all the way to the north. So we're dealing with a soaking rain up here in the interior New England region. So that's what's going on right now. As far as the cone, this will be the last time I show this because it is now weakened into a tropical depression. But the center of this storm will cruise right over the Mid-Atlantic, right over PA, tomorrow, and then right over interior New England late tomorrow evening. And then by the time we get into this weekend, like the beginning of the weekend, I mean, this thing is already racing off well northeast of like New Brunswick, and just pretty much just a post-tropical system at this point, and not really a factor anymore here in the bigger picture. And we'll finally wave one last goodbye to Debby, which has been definitely a weird storm. It really has. I've learned a lot from it. I really have. And, you know, if you look at the track, here it goes. It meanders through Georgia, and this is what it did. Got off the coast, made landfall pretty much right. Remember, I was telling you the whole time I really liked what the Euro was showing, and it pretty much did kind of what the Euro said. It ended up moving a little bit south, but yeah, so Debby has been a tricky one. It really has. But I do want to mention tomorrow. Now, I'll mention a little bit about tonight also, but tomorrow we'll mention the threats levels as far as excessive rainfall and then the Storm Prediction Center. This is the Storm Prediction Center I want to mention tomorrow. There is a slight risk, a level 2 out of 5, that you see Philadelphia, might as well include New York City, down to Baltimore, everybody in between, up to Scranton, all of New Jersey, most of Delaware, a good section of northeastern areas of Maryland. So level 2 out of 5 risk. We do have a marginal risk extending all the way up into the Canadian New England border. And what is this driven off of? It's driven off wind and tornadoes, okay? We actually have a 5% risk of a tornado in the Brown area within 25 miles in any given location. This does include Philadelphia, all of eastern PA, even oozing a little bit into New York State, all the way down to Baltimore. If you live in the green area, which includes New York City, Hartford, western Mass, southern Vermont, areas of southwestern areas of New Hampshire, all the way down to the Delmarva, we have a 2% risk of a tornado. Don't ignore those areas either. And we do have a risk of damaging winds. If you go down and look at the wind outlook for tomorrow, if you live in that yellow area, that's where you have a 15% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. There's also a flooding risk for tomorrow. In the red area, that is where you have a moderate risk, which means you have at least a 40% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles at any given point. I know I butchered Harrisburg this morning. Harrisburg is what I meant to say, not I think Harrisonburg. But, State College, Scranton, Binghamton, up to Syracuse, all the way up to the Adirondacks and the Tuck Hill Plateau. You guys have that more enhanced risk of flash flooding. But even in the yellow area, you could get some flooding tomorrow. If you live in the yellow area, that means there's a 15% chance of flash flood guidance being met or exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. Now, let's take a broad look at things on what the HRRR model is saying, what the radar could look like tomorrow. So we're starting it off this evening, a lot of rain surging through the mid-Atlantic. Please, and I'm going to zoom into this area, do not ignore with these bands. They don't look widespread tonight down here in the mid-Atlantic, Maryland, Delmarva, Tidewater. But these bands that kind of whip through south to north through the mid-Atlantic, Virginia, all the way up to New Jersey could produce tornadoes. You got a low right here. It acts just like when we're talking about weather and severe weather, with like an ejecting low pressure and ejecting trough. Brings its own low-level jet. There'll be a ramping low-level jet that's building throughout the mid-Atlantic overnight to after midnight. We start to wake up tomorrow morning dealing with a lot of heavy rain, even some storms in southern Ontario all the way up into Quebec. A lot of rain up here. A lot of rain surging with the initial low pressure and all the energy associated with it, waking up to just a soaking rain in central PA, up into the southern tier areas of New York, the Finger Lakes region, and you continue to move this to about midday. There are those storms we need to be aware of in southeastern sections of PA, and I'm going to zoom into this area. So just bear with me and get you guys a little bit better of a vantage point of what this looks like. A lot of rain surging up through the Adirondacks, a lot of rain going through the Finger Lakes region. And, definitely will be a washout for your Friday evening activities across the Adirondacks down to the Catskills. Maybe a nasty line of storms working its way through New Jersey, the entire state of New Jersey, all the way to New York City, maybe to Long Island. And then this low continues to kind of get all the way up to Quebec at this point. Tomorrow evening, still dealing with some gusty showers and storms. Some of these could pack a punch. And you see this line of storms sort of kind of the one last punch kind of moving through after midnight tomorrow night throughout southern New England, the down east areas of Maine. And then by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, the last bit of rain leaves the lower 48. And by the time we get into midday Saturday, we are done with Debby. And we can finally say, hey, nothing else to really talk about this system with. But in the shorter term, I'm starting this here at about 9 p.m. this evening, 9 to 10 p.m. We got to continue. In fact, they just issued a tornado watch for areas of northeastern North Carolina and a huge chunk, if not all, of eastern Virginia, where a few tornadoes are possible. So please be aware of this. There are storm chasers in the area that's already got confirmed tornadoes, especially in North Carolina. But as we get to after midnight tonight, you just got to watch all these bands. I mean, this could be a lot more filled in than what this is showing, but this entire area tonight, please be aware of tornadoes in this area tonight, a nocturnal thing in this area right into here. Low-level jet ramping and surging up through this area. It's definitely an area of concern. We unfortunately had a fatality in North Carolina in the wee hours of the morning last night. I think we've had 5 or 6 deaths with this system. So, when it starts to take people's lives, I mean, it gets sad very quickly. So we're praying for everybody impacted in that way, or just impacted in general. So we continue to move forward here. All right, we're starting to get closer to daybreak at this point. Let's get this in motion. So it's around 6 a.m. Eastern time. There's that soaking rain that you're dealing with up in PA, the Eastern Panhandle, West Virginia, Northern Virginia. And then we got to get into tomorrow. And then this is what we have to watch. See these storms right in here? These are the storms you want to watch out for. And then we might have some additional storms that form behind this. A low-level jet will be building into this region, which means what I'm trying to say is your wind energy in the atmosphere will support tornadoes. So you see this draping line right here across eastern PA up into New York, all the way down to the Delmarva. This is affecting Scranton, all the way down to Philadelphia, everybody in between. What is it, Allentown, I believe. I think y'all pronounce it differently. Anyways, don't want to get lost in the names there. But this is going to have rotation in this line. A tornado risk is going to be legit with this, all the way down to the Tidewater, all the way down to the Delmarva. And this continues. And, New Jersey, heads up with this. I do think the biggest tornado threat will be just to the west. But even watch down here in northeast North Carolina. I don't think that these will have much flow with them because the main low pressure at this point of Debby is way up here at this point. But you're going to get some big storms in eastern North Carolina potentially tomorrow too. We just got to watch out for these storms and look at the additional storms that form behind it around midnight tomorrow night. See these storms developing back down here, and then a very stormy night tomorrow night across New Jersey and the New York City into Connecticut, Long Island, southern New York, all the way up into southern New England. We just got to pay attention to this. And you zoom into the ingredients with this. This is our low-level jet. So these are winds in the low levels of the atmosphere, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air. So the actual low pressure as we're getting into tomorrow of what's left over at Debby is right here over kind of west central PA. And then you get east of the low, and then you see this low-level jet ramping at about 50 to 55 knots. So the wind energy in this area will be sufficient for tornadoes. You aid the fact that you have plenty of tropical moisture at the surface. You have, some decent cape levels. And this, you have how you have the wind barb right here. The flag is pointing to the south. That means winds are basically screaming out the south in this area. So a lot of wind energy pushing into this area. I mean, this is also going to bring a lot of wind energy all the way up to New York. That's why you have a 5% risk of a tornado all the way up into New York State. But one thing up here is a lot of this energy, a lot of this wind energy in the low levels of the atmosphere will mix to the surface and definitely create some breezy conditions. And look at this stout southerly flow, even kind of slamming southern New England up against the Jersey Shore, all the way into these bay areas of the Delmarva. This is certainly going to push a little bit of water up into the bays, bring some gusty winds that kind of get trapped into those bay areas. So definitely watch out for that. But you keep this going here. Low-level jet continues, and it's just going to be a very windy afternoon across New England, southern New England, mixed with the fact that you have these storms ongoing. There's going to be wind energy with this. Definitely just a windy night tomorrow night across Vermont, New Hampshire. Mount Washington will probably be ripping on the mountaintop up there. It's known for some of the craziest weather on earth. And then expect a pretty breezy night tomorrow night across the state of Maine as the main last push of this state of Maine as the main last, and a little tongue twister there. But anyways, as that rest of Debby goes on and gets on out of the way, and we can finally wave goodbye. Now, you look at the significant tornado parameter. We'll start this tonight. It's already spiking. The higher you see these numbers, the better ingredients in the atmosphere there is for tornadoes. And I know you're only seeing 1s and 2s, but when it comes to a tropical tornado threat that's being brought to you by a tropical system, a lot of times the parameters don't really show up well in the models. But anywhere where you do have, any kind of coloring right here, 1s, 2s. You have ingredients for tornadoes, and this is in the middle of the night, and then we're getting into tomorrow. As soon as we wake up tomorrow morning, we're going to have a legit tornado risk across eastern PA, the Tidewater area, Maryland, and then we kind of keep this going, and it's probably going to maximize somewhere in eastern PA tomorrow, a little bit into New Jersey. You see how the numbers begin to spike to 3s and 4s here. So basically, like I said, significant tornado perimeter is where you have your best ingredients for tornadoes. That's where it depicts things there. So rainfall between now, some of this is already fell because sometimes the National Weather Service is a little behind. So some of this, especially in Virginia, has already actually happened. But so maybe take an inch out of the totals or so here in the Mid-Atlantic. But additional rainfall to come. Washout is on the way and will continue across central and eastern PA. A sharp gradient where there is no rainfall and a lot that goes literally right through West Virginia. You guys are getting rain now. Some additional rainfall is possible with these outer bands across eastern North Carolina. And then we head on up to New England. A lot of rain on the way. This will be a quick hitting washout. So, you get into tomorrow night, you're going to get a soaking wind-driven rain up here in New England. Nothing that you guys can't handle. But go ahead and, get any loose stuff out your yard. Do what you got to do. Breezy conditions. The winds might not be that bad, but, just prepare for, some 25, 35 mile per hour wind gusts. And, certainly going to get a lot more rain away from west of the I-95 corridor than along it or just east of it. And speaking of the winds, we look at the Mid-Atlantic. It shows the most winds on the east side of the system. For example, the track of this system actually cruises right through here, right? And most of the winds are on the right side. On the eastern side, we got a stout southerly flow coming up through this area. This is going to bring some very windy conditions, aid in the wind energy for the severe weather threats. So, you could get some 30, 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts across the Mid-Atlantic, southern New England. Some scattered power outages are certainly possible with these. And then we look up into New England, and I'm telling you, it's going to be, don't let it catch you by surprise, guys. It is definitely going to be a windy night tomorrow night and tomorrow during the day, but tomorrow night across the interior sections of New England, especially live a little bit higher up in elevation, southerly flow pushes up against these mountain tops and things like that. And you can get some 40 to 50 mile per hour sporadic wind gusts throughout the Adirondacks. Especially points east, the Catskills down to the Berkshires, Green and White Mountains, all the way up into central and northern and I would say western sections of Maine. So expect some breezy conditions, scattered power outages. It's definitely possible to likely. In fact, I'm very interested to see how this materializes up here in the Northeast for you folks tomorrow into tomorrow night. So that's the last detailed update on the Debby. Before we move to the next segment, I do want to say thank you for following along with covering Debby. Thank you for trusting me. 95% of the comments were very nice and polite. So we already have another one to track, and that's exactly what we're about to move to right now. So here we go. Now, this morning when I made this video, see if we have some new information. We don't. We were at a 20% chance for this to develop. And now, I remember I mentioned that if it goes from 30 to 40, we go from yellow to orange. And here we are. We're at orange now. So confidence has steadily increased throughout the day as model guidance continues to hone in on this tropical wave that most likely will develop, in my opinion. So around the 4:35 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center, this got a bump up from a 30 to a 40% chance to develop sometime in the next 7 days. And anytime I say develop, guys, I mean develop into a depression or a named storm. Our next named storm is the E name, Ernesto. So that's the next name we'll be talking to death. It was Beryl. We didn't speak much on Chris because it lasted a whopping 24 hours. And then, of course, it was Debby. We've been talking about her nonstop for a while. Ernesto is likely going to be one what we talk about a lot coming up, and then there could be more to follow. But let's just focus on what we got here. So this morning, I don't know if you remember, but there was no yellow X up here. So when they put an X here, this is actually where they're saying where the tropical wave of interest is. So now they actually got an X, and this is bumped a little bit further out in the central Atlantic. Okay, so it has a 40% chance to develop in this orange area into a depression or named storm. So it's going to have to get into this area before it has a real shot to develop. I will tell you, there's another update coming at around 7:38. They can bump this to a 40 to a 50. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. It probably will happen as soon as I push upload and make this video public. So if it does bump to 40 to 50, I wouldn't be surprised one bit at all. Not one bit at all. In fact, I kind of expected to get bumped up to a 50% at the 8 p.m. or 11 p.m. update. So this is what we got. And if you're wondering where this wave is, now I can tell you the satellite is running a little bit behind right now, so it might look a little bit different. So I think it's a couple hours behind. But this is our tropical wave of interest right now, just a sloppy area of energy, which is pretty much a tropical wave, and just a lot of unsettled weather out here in the eastern to central Atlantic. If you're not familiar with what we call these ocean areas out here, this is what we call the tropical Atlantic, or the main development region, or the MDR for short. A lot of times this area does not get active until late August into September. But this hurricane season is built different. We've already seen pretty much every single system that has formed so far this hurricane season in the Atlantic. All the A through D names has impacted land. There's been no fish storms yet. So just remember that. But we're going to watch this energy as it tries to consolidate into a main vortice, a main area of energy. And eventually it's going to move closer to the Caribbean, the Lesser Antilles. And we need to definitely watch you find folks here in the Caribbean. And then what is it going to do once it gets into this area? It's a big question. All right. So that's the area right here we're watching, our tropical wave. We got to watch, see how organized it gets over the weekend and that stuff. So let's go over all the latest model, guys. This is the stuff a lot of people obviously want to see, and that's exactly what we're going to show you. So the latest GFS, we're going to initialize this for this evening. There it is, already popping a week low right here. And we're going to start out in the central Atlantic. If you have no clue where we are, that's Africa right here. This is the Lesser Antilles. That's Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and I'm about to show you the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico here in a second. But let's start this, early on. We get into Saturday morning. Still just a wave. No depression or anything like that. We get into Sunday morning. The GFS still just has a wave here. And I want you to note, we're not going to speak on it much, but there's energy behind this too. Then we get into Monday morning, August the 12th. We have a very compact but strengthening tropical system. At this point, we would have Ernesto, if the GFS is correct, Monday morning. As early as Monday morning, 1,002 millibar low would probably make this a tropical storm. And then we take it into Tuesday morning. A very small, compact, moderate to strong gray tropical storm is bearing down on the northern sections of the Lesser Antilles, like the Leeward Islands, things like that. Starting to creep really close to you folks. So we go ahead and then we flip to the Western Atlantic. Here it is on your screen. So this is the same time, Tuesday morning, 12Z 2UE, stands for Monday morning, August the 13th. Okay. We continue to move this. This makes landfall as a tropical storm somewhere in the Lesser Antilles. And remember, everything that I speak on isn't going to be your exact conclusion. We're just going over model guidance. That's what we do here when we're trying to sniff out a tropical threat here. This makes landfall as a stronger tropical storm, maybe low in Category 1 hurricane somewhere in Puerto Rico. And then it begins to creep into the Southwest Atlantic. Here it is, north of Hispaniola, 984. If you're wondering, that's probably a Category 1 hurricane. And then we take it into Friday morning. It's a 977 millibar hurricane. Category 2 status, I would say. And then what does it do after this? Looks like a trough tries to dig down to the southeast, and it might try to kick this out. But I want you guys to notice we are literally 9 days out at this point. 210 hours away, August the 17th. This is how long we're going to be tracking this system. And I'm pretty confident, I am pretty confident this is going to be something that's we're going to be tracking for at least the next 10 days. But it has a hurricane just outside the Bahamas in the Southwest Atlantic. Not affecting anybody at this point. Okay, and we're going to take it 10 days out. This thing looks like it's trying to turn, but it's a major hurricane off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic and the upper portion of the Southeast next weekend, next Sunday. It looks like it misses. Now, I do want to mention, before we get too deep into this, a lot of people want to declare these fish storms. Folks, don't assume anything about these storms. We have no idea what the steering currents are going to be. If you kind of go back when we were tracking Debby in the beginning, we thought that a trough was going to dig down and maybe do something different than what Debby ended up doing. But it did not. Remember, in the beginning with Debby, we had a lot of members that were way over here. We thought maybe this would kind of scoot in this area and maybe turn into a hurricane and barely scrape the Outer Banks. I don't know if you guys remember that. And that was in the medium term. Okay, this is way, way out there. So let's not assume this is going to turn out to sea. Let's hope it is and pray it is. But let's not assume it is. I've already had comments like that on social media. Now, the European model, starting it off tonight. Let's take it all the way to Saturday morning. Same thing, not really developing much. Okay, we get into Sunday morning. It's right here. See the L? Not a whole lot going on. We get into Monday morning. Still just an open wave. You know, on the GFS, it's already developed into a tropical storm, not the Euro. And then we starting to get into Tuesday morning, and we'll go on and flip it. Just still an open wave, guys. I mean, just a lot of tropical moisture. This would be good news for the Lesser Antilles. And then we flip it here. Look at the Caribbean. Caribbean right here, Gulf of Mexico, Southwest Atlantic. And we keep this going. Is this going to develop this? And we get into Wednesday morning, August the 14th, next week. We're starting to get a little bit more organization with this wave. And then we get into next Thursday. Literally, this is right here. It's literally a week from today. A week from right now, next Thursday evening, August the 16th. We have a tropical storm, kind of in the same area as the GFS was showing a hurricane. So where's it going to go after this? Well, if we keep it going, it kind of slows down. We get into next Saturday morning, and we got a hurricane just, I would say, several hundred miles east of the Bahamas. And then it's kind of creeping northwest. We don't want them to get too close. On the final frame, 10 days out, not this Sunday morning, but next, August the 18th, we got a strengthening hurricane. Basically what some people would call the Bermuda Triangle area. I haven't mentioned that ever on this channel, by the way, but just interesting to think here. But it's basically between Bermuda, the Bahamas, and the southeast coastline. The Southwest Atlantic is what I call it. So, yeah, what happens after this? I just want to reiterate for the third or fourth time how long we're going to be tracking this, guys. It's going to be a while. This is going to be a haul. I think it is just going to be insane the next 2 months. I really do. Hopefully there'll be breaks for my sake and for everybody's sake, especially the people who live along the coastal regions of, live in the Caribbean and the U.S. Now, this is the 18Z Icon, the latest one, and only goes 120 hours out. Only going to take us out to next Tuesday afternoon. And already it has a strengthening tropical storm pretty much where the GFS had it. And, I mean, if you back it up, you see where it's heading, kind of the same general direction as the Euro and the GFS. Now, if we flip back and look at the 12Z icon here, it's a little bit further south. It proceeds to take this north of Hispaniola sometime late next week, and then has an all-out hurricane. Same area as the Euro and GFS, difference in strength, but 1 week for today, from 1 week from right now, has a Category 2-ish hurricane, well north of Hispaniola and just outside these islands in the Southwest Atlantic. What is it, the Turks? It's really killing me that I'm struggling remembering this area right here. Let's, in fact, I can just zoom in right here and look. Yeah, the Turks and Caicos Islands. Forgive me if you're tuning in from this area. I need to mention you guys more. But these areas right into here. And then, of course, we get into the Bahamas, which are right into here. Turks and Caicos, the Caicos Islands. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. This is definitely an area you want to watch here. Now, this is very far out. Okay. But even the Canadian model, guys, I'm just going over all model guides, has a strengthening hurricane at this point, north of the Leeward Islands, the Lesser Antilles, and then has this thing turning out to sea pretty quickly. And if something like the Canadian model was something that would actually happen, then you would really need to watch out in Bermuda. So, what about the European Ensemble, the EPS? Makes up 51 members, throws them all on the screen. That's a pretty loud signal. We have a lot of members developing, and we got some members that are creeping, kind of riding more close to Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, and Haiti. We got some members going over to Cuba. We got some abruptly turning, like they're going to proceed to go out to sea. And I'm only going to keep this 1 week out. There's no point in going any further in this. Some people will show you 10 days out, but I'm going to keep it 1 week out. So 1 week from right now, most of these members are sitting here in the Southwest Atlantic. So we even zoom in this a little bit more. Remember, it makes up 51 members. And that is over half the members showing something. And some of these are strong, guys. You know, some of these are well below 1,000 millibars. Remember, the lower the number of the millibars, the stronger the storm. So, I do want to mention, if we're speaking a little bit, and it's a little bit early, if we're speaking on the environment background, the GFS has this system Monday morning entering the picture a little bit closer to home. Here's the L right here, and we keep this going, and I want to get right here. So at this point, this is starting to affect the Lesser Antilles, getting close to Puerto Rico. All right, this is like next Tuesday evening. I do want to mention the reason why the models really have this strengthening in this area is because, and once again, we're going to be speaking like this about this like crazy, just like we were when we were tracking Debby. This has a nice anticyclonic flow. It's basically positioned nicely in what we call a ULAC, which is an upper level anticyclone is the acronym for that. And basically, these tropical systems spin just like this, cyclonically, right, in the northern hemisphere. But if you look at what we're seeing here, these are winds. You see the kind of slashes of blue here. This is at winds at 200 millibars. So these are winds at like 35, 40,000 feet up in the air. So well above the actual mid to low level circulation, winds are being dispersed outward and basically fanning out from the actual circulation of the system. So this is dealing with a very low shear environment. Air is being dispersed outward from the system. It's allowing for more air to rise and just a continuous process. And it's because we're in a favorable background where we have a lack of a tut, which is just pretty much a persistent upper level low. And we just have a very low shear environment, low trade wind environment. And listen, I mean, this environment looks like it continues. This is an extremely low shear environment here. I mean, look here, once it gets into the Southwest Atlantic 1 week from today, there's hardly no flow. But I mean, there is just I hate to say it, but a wonderful environment in the upper levels of the atmosphere for this to basically explode into this area. So, you know, one thing is, you know, how fast does this develop a very warm, moist core? I would say a moist core, it's going to be warm, obviously. And there's no point even looking at the sea surface temperatures, guys. There really isn't. Because they're plenty warm out here. Plenty of warm. Even in an average hurricane season. Okay, but if you notice, once those sea surface temperatures, once the upper wind pattern really increases, this develops just a extremely tight, moist core. You see how this is completely surrounded by the greens here. This is moist air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. I mean, the little bit of dry air that's around it is not getting entrained in its core whatsoever. So this obviously begins to deepen at a pretty moderate pace on the GFS, and we have a strengthening tropical system. And some of these models are even more intense with this, with just a very potent environment for strengthening of a tropical system in this area. We just need kind of what the GFS is showing, a big trough of dry air, cold front to really dig down and kick this thing out of here. So we have a long time to figure out, you know, if that's going to happen, if it does. So that's all I got. This will be a heavy topic over the next several days, and the tropics is going to be a massive topic. And I'll tell you what we'll probably do in the morning videos is we'll give you an update on the tropics in the beginning, and then we'll give you an update on what's going to happen that day across the lower 48. But I'm obviously asking for prayers for rest for me, because it's full send ahead in getting these videos out. Of course, I'm going to have to take some breaks here and there in the evenings and just somehow let the evening video go. But I think it's very important to keep you guys updated because this is a changing situation. And I think the most important thing here, in my opinion, is to keep on going over the same repetitive information here, as far as teaching you guys how this works. So when it does come, because it's inevitable, guys, when we get impacted by another tropical system here in the coming weeks, you guys have a better understanding of the impacts that we're breaking down for you guys. Why is it doing this? Why is this area getting that? Why is this area getting this? It's important. A lot of people, I think in the world we live in today, people's attention span is not great, and I think it's because of social media. I mean, even I struggle with that sometimes, guys. When somebody's telling me like a 30-second joke, I start losing them after 10 seconds. I'm just like, dude, please just get to the punchline. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I get it. I'm not saying I'm any different than anybody else, but when it comes to the weather, if you're genuinely worried about a storm, have anxiety over it, I challenge you guys to really just take some time and actually understand how it works. It could save your life. And, it's just something that, I really think is very, very important. Just watch more than 10 to 15 seconds of something that, don't just try to look for the cut and dry information. I understand not everybody has 45 minutes to watch a video. Totally get that. That's why I spend 10 minutes after these videos drop making timestamps. But I think it's really important to sort of learn what's going on. I really do. So God bless all y'all. Y'all stay safe tonight. Appreciate the heck out of everybody. Thank you for the support, all the love with this channel. And I just want to say welcome to all the new subscribers. You'll notice this channel is a lot different than others. It's more of a personal vibe. There's nothing flashy about it. But I can tell you, one thing we do on this channel is we look out for one another, we pray for one another, and we will provide non-stop updates every single day. So God bless y'all. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you again in the morning.